Thank you, Swamp Dweller, for coming on the Fox Den podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I encountered you because, as I told you before, I interviewed Let's Read, and I started seeing a lot of tweets from other YouTube narrators, and you're a prolific one on there who records a lot. And I saw that you have a Southern tint to your content, being in Florida and investigating the sort of indigenous myths there, like the skunk ape, which we will get into. But not only that, so there's that kind of personal component there where I thought, oh, this guy's narrating stuff from my old neck of the woods. I also saw that you really made an effort after the tragic passing of the YouTuber Etika, who did a lot of reaction videos to Nintendo Direct. You made it an effort to start sharing like suicide hotlines and really to call attention to your followers about the importance of mental health. So I thought it'd be really cool to have you on.
Yeah, definitely. Etika was actually like the first streamer I ever watched myself, so I was kind of really sad about that in a pretty awkward, I would say, negative headspace, because I found myself, I'm like, why am I sad?
Right.
But it's not like somebody I knew personally, but it was somebody I wish I knew so I could have, been a shoulder. But yeah, I just wanted to bring awareness to that because my mom has bipolar and she goes through a lot of struggle with that, and my sisters do too. So I'm very sympathetic when it comes to like mental illness and stuff.
Yeah, I think that the stigma surrounding, and especially things like bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety disorders, is really harmful because so many people struggle with those concerns, and it can be really just like when people have invisible illnesses that you don't see them in a wheelchair or anything like that. The tendency for some people is to say, well, if you can't see it, then it's not there. Just get over it and tough it out. And so I like that at least with younger generations now, millennials and younger down to Gen Z, there's at least an effort now to say, you know what, screw that sort of mentality. Let's talk about it, get help out there. And the more you draw the stuff to light, the more that it's going to be acceptable to talk about it. And hopefully, we just might be able to avert more tragedies like this.
Definitely. We can only hope. It seems to be more normalized now, I'd say more than ever. And
Right.
I can see it continuing being more normalized into the future.
Sure. So like I said before, a lot of your content addresses some myths in Florida and some disappearances. You take a really interesting approach to YouTube narration where you will cover unsolved disappearances. What got you interested in that? Because I think that's a kind of a category I hadn't seen before.
It's kind of just like just curiosity killed the cat when it comes to that. Honestly, like
Sure.
I just saw these weird because I've always been known as like the nature guy when it comes to the community. I always just cover natural topics and obviously
Sure.
supernatural topics, but I mainly focus on like park rangers, state parks, national parks, just the woods in general. So I noticed that there's just like a ton of weird and just downright creepy disappearances from state parks, and there's just a alarming number of them growing each year. And I was like, well, what is this phenomenon? So I looked into it and started covering it state by state, and it just became something awesome. And I think it was just because like nobody really comes at it with my point of view. I'm not really trying to make anything scary or make it. I'm coming at it with just like what the facts are, what we know, what we can say, and hopefully we can uncover something that'll help.
Right, for sure. I think also one thing I got out of it, having a clinical mind and sometimes not turning that off, is I'm hearing themes of what happens. I mean, people hiking alone, and you hit on that. One of them, you're like, if you're going to go hiking, I think it was the Oregon one, please have someone, or if you have mental illness issues, please don't go out into the wilderness. I was really impressed with that because we can see some commonalities in those stories. We could see where things might have gone differently. The one where people saw a child wandering around, I think that was the Colorado one, was just heartbreaking to hear that nobody just stopped that child to say, hey, where are your parents? I don't know what happened. I know you're reporting the facts, but that sounded really like that was very disappointing to hear the reactions.
Oh, yeah.
That no one grabbed that kid up to help him out and maybe go to the police or something.
It's just disappointing to me because there's multiple cases of that. The Virginia one had that. The Tennessee
Yeah.
one coming up has that. And it
Oh
just
Lord.
seems, and I've done another one, it's not state specific, but I've done missing children for state parks. And almost every one of those cases is like, they just weren't paying attention. And I get a lot of backlash actually from that Oregon one where you mentioned at the end of the video, I mentioned about, mental health and awareness, and there are hotlines and share that. I actually got a lot of pushback for that. People were like, how's that going to save anybody? I'm like, you don't know, like a lot of these cases, like a lot of people want to attribute it to Bigfoot and stuff like
Right.
that. And like, that's cool. That's fine. But I'm never going to do that because these are real people who have real pain and are actually suffering, and maybe being like, oh yeah, it's this thing that we can't prove exists. It just seems really disingenuous to me. So I want to be the guy that's like, well, let's try to actually help this. And the reason I do that is because I've actually had multiple families comment on these videos and give me extra insight and share stuff. Like the Margaret Beck one I covered not too long ago, the
Yeah.
entire family commented on that. And that was awesome to get, the extra insight and information that I wasn't able to find. And it was cool to know that I was the first person to actually cover it on the YouTube space. So it was just tragic case that kind of like stuck out to me, and I was like, I have to make a video on that.
That's pretty impressive, man. Where did you hear about these cases? Just in news or?
The Margaret Beck one was honestly just like I was scrolling through Reddit. Sometimes you'll see good, interesting stuff. On the side, I make comedy videos from like today I effed up stuff and like Florida man stuff just because, it's good to laugh sometimes.
Yes.
And so I found this random cross post, and I clicked on it, and it was about this Girl Scout aide who was 16 who was murdered in the 60s, and nobody ever really figured it out. And the case was just so messy, and it just was like, it just seemed they're like, yeah, we don't really care. Let's just throw this girl away. And I was like, that just seems, it just like, when I looked it up on YouTube, there was nothing there. There's like 4 articles online. I'm like, well, I feel like this is something I should bring attention to, because that's kind of like why I do it ultimately. It's just like raise awareness for it. Like most of the time those videos are demonetized by YouTube anyway, so I don't really care about turning a profit, because it's like, to me, it's just more like a passion project. And
geez, I don't know why that's demonetized. Is it the nature of the content being violent?
it's just because there's murder in the title. Like there's nothing in the videos. Like they're very clean. I don't show them like, it's not blood and gore going everywhere.
I watched them. Yeah.
It's just, it's very documentary style, but it's just, it's just how it goes, the news can cover it, but
Sure. No, I think that's great that you're bringing attention to cold cases and you're drawing some themes there and you're showing what to avoid maybe if you're going out on hikes. And doesn't that say a lot about human nature that people would rather attribute it to Bigfoot than think about negative real life occurrences like mental illness and the effects of that? That's a lot less romantic and cryptozoological, right? It's like, no, what is that going to help to tell somebody to get help for mental illness? Well, actually, it
sells a lot less books.
Right.
It sells a lot less books. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's kind of how a lot of Bigfoot is when it comes to that community. Like it's just, it's a lot about like, how can I sell you this or how can I sell you that? It's just like all about, using the likeness and the idea of Bigfoot. I mean, because like, I don't know, it just seems to me like if we were actually looking for something, which, I'm sure some people are, there are a lot of legitimate people I've met over the years, but there's also a lot more that outweigh the good, unfortunately, when it comes to that kind of stuff. Because it's just capitalism, you know what I mean? Everything is monetized, everything is branded. So it's just hard to really get into that stuff, because you can see the cases where there are families that are actually affected by these stories being told about their family members, and how they're harassed by people about it, and they just want actual closure, but they get more questions and then harassment with it. So I try to be like the opposite of that. That's like what kind of motivates me to keep doing those.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how you put in there, these stories are allegedly true. It's like, well, that's, that's a good disclaimer. That's pretty responsible.
Yeah. Over the years, I've just learned to like disclose it as best I can. Like I started out like every other channel does, putting true in the title and all that, doing what you do. And then I just got to a point now where I'm just like, I'm not really trying to prove any of this to people. Like the podcast is mainly just stories that viewers send in that they claim are true. So I'm just like, these are claimed to be true. It's up to you to believe them. If you don't, well, you got a good story. That's ultimately what this is about, is entertainment. So, I don't know. I just don't see the point of trying to like, I guess like drill it in there. Like, these are true. the skinwalker really did a backflip. He really shot AK-47 bullets at me. I'm 12.
Yeah. No, I feel it. It's great.
I'm just like, it's cool, guys. You can choose to believe or not. If you
Yeah.
find entertainment of it, just listen to it. If not, don't listen to it. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the best approach to take. And I mean, so one thing so first of all, though, I'm getting ahead of myself. I was going to ask something, but I'll save that. What are your favorite kinds of videos or to narrate? What do you like the most out of the categories? Because you got a few. You got documentaries. You got videos where you read about the cryptids and the cryptozoological stuff. What's your favorite?
That's a hard question, but I would say I have to answer it in two ways. I have to say my favorite things to read and like narrate would probably just be like good old fashioned ghost stories,
Nice.
the Unexplained series, just because as a kid, that's what got me into horror in general, was ghost stories and movies and hunting and all that. And but I would say ultimately my favorite kind of video to make is the documentaries, because there's a lot of research, there's a lot of visual editing that goes into it, and that's ultimately like the goal, where I want to end up doing more of that eventually.
That's impressive. Yeah, I think that your documentaries, I got to say, I listened to both the one on the bunyip, which was fascinating, and on the illustrious skunk ape from Florida. And for listeners out there, I really encourage listening to both of those because they are done professionally. You went back into like the ancient periods of Earth before continents merged, discussing essentially the formation of Florida. Yeah. And how that could have affected the rise of this mythical ape creature that could have evolved from a smaller simian creature. I mean, that is beyond what you get in a lot of these YouTube videos about Bigfoot and other mythical creatures. Man, that was some intense work.
I want it to be memorable ultimately. I want you to, like, even if you didn't like the theory that I presented, which a lot of people didn't, if you look at the comments, but I was like, even if you didn't like the theory I put out there, at least you would have came away with like, wow, this was well done. This was research. This was effort. It wasn't just like, there's a monkey out there. So it was just, cause I've seen I got inspired to do these cause I've seen like so many people doing them, but then like you watch them and there's really it's just like more of like an hour of just like some old guy in a chair talking about how we saw something that looked like a Bigfoot once. And I'm just like, that's cool, but like I want to actually go and see these things and interview these people and, try to put together, an actual like timeline of what it could be. And the skunk ape one was pretty gnarly when it came to that, but mainly just because like there's not a lot of actual like text to the backstory of the skunk ape aside from it originated from the Seminole tribe. So I was just like, I have to, come up with a theory that could feasibly make this a real monster or a real creature, because that's what cryptozoology is at the end of the day. That's what I think we've lost a lot, is that people are they're calling it paracryptozoology now, but I'm like, that just kind of makes it more of a joke than people already looked at it, because we're already chasing Bigfoots and monsters, right? But a lot of things that used to be cryptids were, there used to be one called Pongo over in Africa, and that turned out to be great apes, or gorillas. Then you had the colossal squid that was the Kraken for so long. And that's the most recent one, I'd say. But then you got like vampire deer. Like there's all kinds of cool animals that are cryptids, but because all cryptid means is an animal that could exist, but it's not proven not to. So a Bigfoot is feasibly an animal that could exist. Now, when you get into the world of crazy other things, and it just kind of, I don't know, gets muddied.
It does, right. And so I want people to go to your videos and watch them, but to kind of whet the appetite, the skunk ape is essentially, you nailed it, a Seminole tradition of the tall man defender, and you go into the potential origins of it. It's very, very impressive stuff.
Definitely was a lot of work, but T.W. Grimm helped me out a lot. He's a good author. He helps me out a lot with the scripts, and he's helping me on one right now. We're working on one on the Ninjin, and I currently am about to upload one on the Ravenmocker. So that's definitely something to look forward to.
Oh,
We're going into Cherokee lore now. We're getting up in pretty much toward where you were telling me you were from. So,
yeah, South Carolina. Very good research on I can tell. I mean, that's a fact there. So, and that's another thing that I would love to highlight is you definitely give dues to the native communities that originate these myths, right? You really attribute them well. And even your avatar, your picture, the deer skull thing. Tell us more about that, because I read people were trying to say where they thought it was from, and you made it up, and it's a tribute, but it's people were getting it wrong, the origins of it.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun because it's evolved over my just about 3 years now on YouTube. Like the character has slowly evolved from and grew the antlers and grew extra parts of it. And this the one that's my profile picture on YouTube is not even the actual like updated one. The one on the banner is, but I've just been too lazy to change it. But um, basically, it is a ultimate tribute to the skunk ape. It is the swamp protector, but there are I made my own little story behind it, but it is based on a legend of a swamp protector. Because if you don't know, like the Seminole tribe is multiple different tribes kind of came together, much like a lot of other nations from the Midwest did, and so there's like multiple different swamp protectors, but the strong one that they made, which most people think was just to kind of scare away the Spaniards. But there's just a lot of weird stuff around that too, because I actually wanted to add this in there, but I didn't. But there are encounters from the early Spaniards, but I just couldn't really verify those too much, so I didn't want to like throw those in there. But mine is essentially a totem, and not a lot of natives in this area of the country really use totems, but the Seminole did for some reason. Not much, but they would carve them out of like what we would call swamp cabbage, which is basically just like the inside of a certain type of it's palm tree. Excuse me, couldn't think of it. And basically, they do various different like blood rituals. Like they'll say they'll hunt a bear because it's very powerful, and they'll drain it of blood, and they'll fill this totem with the blood, and they will call upon it for protection, and it will protect the land that they live on, which is ultimately another swamp protector. And that mixed with the tall man, I put together and created the swamp dweller, which is ultimately just a totem with a spirit inside.
Yeah. Good origin story. It's funny. You call your followers the swamp dwellers, or the swamp, and I like to call people who listen to my show the members of the Fox Den. So it's like different little areas there where followers gather. It's pretty funny.
I feel like a swamp is like ultimately, like a lot of people like, it seems like it limits your marketability, but ultimately I feel not, because if you think about it, swamps are the most diverse biomes in the world. More organisms live in the swamp than anywhere else, all inhabiting. So that means this can be the most diverse community on the internet that has all kinds of people from all walks of life.
Absolutely. God, the Florida Everglades too. It was very fascinating to hear about the skunk ape and how it could smell bad because of collecting all the sulfurous scents and things like that. That I found fascinating. That's like interesting origin there.
Yeah, a lot of fun to look into that stuff. The bunyip was a lot of fun too, because there was a lot more information you could find and translate. So it's a lot of fun to do that stuff.
Yeah,
sure.
What interested you in that one? That was the bunyip one was very dense. I finished watching that one. I thought, wow, you've got a lot of citations there. You've got tons of stuff from the 1800s. You've got Hamilton Hume and James Meehan discovered the bones of this thing. It was really almost like a mystery on 48 Hours or something. He's got all these bones involved.
Yeah, we went ham on that. I really wanted to nail the point. I really just wanted to nail that in there. There's bones. It's like I really want people to be like, there's been multiple skeletons. Some of them debunked, some not.
Yes.
But I've always been a big fan of the bunyip for some reason. It was like when I first started this, I really was interested in swamp cryptids, obviously. And that was like the first one I found. And I was just like, but I never was able to like really find much information on it. So when I had my friend T.W. Grimm help me look into this, I was really excited when I saw that he like was able to unearth all kinds of stuff that I was never able to find and get all kinds of stuff translated for me. And it was just like insane. And it just like sparked like a whole new thing. I was like, okay, I need to make 5 more of these right now. Like, but yeah, it's just one of those interesting topics. And it's just such a there's nothing consistent about the bunyip. There's so many different descriptions and so many different remains and so many different stories about
Right.
it. It just was like, seemed like something that was universal enough that could easily be put into the marsupial lion category or something along those lines.
That's what I got. Is as I was following along, I thought, wait a minute, somebody else just said it had hippopotamus, dinosaur physiology. Now I'm seeing pictures of reptilian humanoid creature. Now I'm hearing about something. Now I'm looking at a drawing from the 1800s that looks absolutely horrific with this almost horse-faced entity crawling out. And
Yeah.
I'm citing the drawing by what was the guy's name? Edwin Stokeweller. I'll just include a link or something. That's a rough name to spell. But
Yeah, I had a tough time
sure.
with that one too.
No, it didn't sound like it. You pronounced it well. The drawing though is absolutely hideous. Just because it looked like a melting horse or something, it just doesn't look earthly at all. But then when you explain that it could be the marsupial lion, you show pictures of that, it seems feasible. The bunyip was interesting to me because if you know anything about Carl Jung and his idea of the collective unconscious, you nailed this concept that it could be like a collective unconscious fear of the Aboriginal people, right? Like an ethnic memory. They told it for long because this thing was alive up until like what, 40,000 years ago, 14,000, something like that.
Yeah, they would have lived along it for close to like 5,000-6,000 years.
God. And so they could talk about this entity, and just like ancient fears of snakes and things that come from eons, as old as reptiles themselves and as old as humanity itself, you've got that potential for the bunyip. I think that seems extremely plausible just because of how nuanced it is and how oral tradition passes through. And it's like the telephone game. It gets changed a little bit. Some liberties are taken.
Definitely.
It's kind of like the mythical, the origins of myths. So you wanted to do a project. You'd asked on Twitter if anybody was interested in raising money to donate to 4Ocean. That sounds awesome. Do you want to plug that a little bit or talk about your love for the environment?
Sure, yeah, I would love to. 4Ocean and the Ocean Cleanup Project are two causes that I really, really support. I want to say it was Norway recently became the only country that doesn't have waste, like at all, like in their oceans, and like it was like insane. I'm like, well, this is inspiring me because I've been saying for like a long time, I'm just like, we have like the UN and all these people patrolling the waters, and there's so much plastic in it, but nobody's doing anything to pick it up and do anything. So I'm just like, why don't we need? Then when I learned about these organizations, I was like, well, this is perfect. So I would like to try to raise some money on that. I don't have a date yet. I wanted to do it last month, but things obviously kind of been coming up here and there. It's like, if it's not one thing, it's another for me recently. But
oh yeah, of course, with the air
conditioning. It's been one of those months. Oh yeah, it's been one of those months for sure. But I want to hopefully do it sometime in August. I'll probably obviously tweet about that and put it in videos if you guys are watching there. And I'll make it definitely very much aware. But we're basically going to try to raise as much money as we can. And if we raise $100, I will match that on top. So I'll throw another $100 on it. If we raise 1,000, then I'll put 1,000 on it. And if it gets to a point to where I can't afford it, well, I'll just have to take out a loan and put a loan on top of it. And we're going to try to get these oceans cleaned if we can. And
my gosh,
them around for everybody.
Finally, some good news, right? That's pretty awesome. I read that you asked if people would be interested in a video detailing and interviewing people who believe in conspiracy theories. Okay, you've got a doomsday prepper guy. Any progress on that? What are you thinking about those videos? Because, boy, that could be a fascinating series.
See, like, it's just like I have all these series kind of in the works that are like ready to go, but then like YouTube kind of changes their guidelines all of a sudden on us. So like recently they announced that they're going to be like demonetizing and completely like removing conspiracy videos from the algorithm. So I'm like, well, wow. Okay, so I don't really care about it being monetized, but the thing that sucks about them being demonetized and why most people get upset about it is because YouTube doesn't push the video. Like if it's not monetized, they're just like, you know what, they don't even let your own subscribers know. So like it's a battle just to like that's why most people get upset about it. It's really not the money. It's the fact that like YouTube discriminates that video basically. But yeah, they're apparently blacklisting that. So like now I don't know, maybe I can just like change the title, try to figure out a way to finagle it. Right now I have like 2 episodes ready, the Doomsday Prepper one, and there's another one with somebody who thinks the earth is flat. That was an interesting one. And,
oh yeah, okay.
So I got those ready. I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to title this, or how,
Sure.
what we can do to like put it out there so it's not suppressed so heavily.
Oh, I feel that. One thing you could do is call it like unique beliefs or something like that. There's so much you can do with that, because if you've ever watched any documentaries on Vice, they interview people like that all the time. Like, and I'm not trying to at all denigrate the beliefs of anyone, but the indigo children, the belief in indigo children, have you heard of that before?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a thing they did. And then targeted individuals, TIs, that is a rabbit hole. Are you familiar at all with that idea?
I've looked at some of it.
Wow, that's impressive.
I've looked at a lot of stuff. My girlfriend's dad is like crazy into conspiracy theories. Like he is big into it. So I know a little bit about all of them, but not enough to really hold a strong conversation about them. I try not to go down those rabbit holes because I've been down there before in the past, and like I always end up getting in this weird headspace where like I'm questioning everything. And it's just like, I feel like it's just not like, it's not a healthy mindset sometimes.
No, I understand that. I think it can, when you encounter these hypotheses and then the theories built out of them where everything has a hidden meaning or means something else, and there's just no scaffolding for any basic beliefs, there can be a burnout factor there for sure when you hear about so much stuff that's just negative or conspiratorial, just paranoid. It's not a good place to be some of the time. Yeah,
definitely. I found myself like not like easily paranoid, but like easily getting mentally kind of affected by stuff like that, especially like cold cases. So I try not to do them too often, but
sure.
like I've struggled with a lot of depression in my life and a lot of like PTSD stuff. So like I still like feel like I slip into that stuff fairly easily sometimes. And I was like, yikes. Like I caught myself doing that, like I said earlier, with the Atticus situation. I was like, dang, man, I haven't been watching him recently, so I wasn't really aware of the situation. And then it may just kind of put you in that thought process, like, oh man, I should have been a better fan, but at the same time, it's not like, something you can't really do anything about it at the end of the day. So, but I find myself affected by that stuff. And I've noticed like a few, I think it was Kaylee Elise actually had to quit her channel because she was just having too many, issues mentally from all the content she was covering, because she covered a lot of like Jane and John Doe's and a lot of children cases, and it was just having a lot of effect on her, and especially with everyday struggles that people have with their existing depression and anxiety and stuff like that, it can be a bit much.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I thank you for bringing that up, because it's fascinating now in our postmodern era that anyone is a reporter, anyone can do this kind of investigative journalism. And the problem is when you start doing it on your own, there's nobody to tell you what to expect out of that sort of business, or out of that, even if it's just not a business, if it's just what I mean is YouTube videos, those can be monetized, but people go into it doing it for fun and as a passion project, and then they can get burned out because you don't have anyone telling you, hey, this stuff is going to wear on you when you think about it. If you have any degree of empathy as a human being and you're reading about this stuff, it's almost like being a therapist in its own right, where you're reading and you're empathizing with these people who aren't even there. And I can for sure see how that would burn out younger people and those who just aren't ready for that and come in with great intentions, but maybe didn't have the self-care in place to take away some of that trauma out of their minds.
Definitely. I feel that has been like what I've tried to make sure I rein in the most as somebody who does this on a daily basis, is that, mental health is important. So you got to remind yourself of that. And I feel like sometimes tweeting it out and reminding my followers helps me remind myself as well to, take care of what I'm doing mentally, not just burn myself out. Because, when you do this every day, especially when you cover weird things from conspiracies all the way to missing people, like in that range spectrum, it's easy to get lost in it, and it's easy to forget about yourself and your own well-being.
That's absolutely true. So I was just going to ask, what do you like to do for self-care? What you like to do when you're not recording these videos?
I The first thing I did was I tried to make like a solid, just like 9 to 5 job work schedule. Like Monday through Friday, I make my videos, and then on the weekends, you're off. Just hang out with my puppy or my 4 guinea pigs that are always loud and whining for more food. Or just hang out with my girlfriend, go for walks, maybe hang out at the bar or something. Just do social things. I've tried to force myself to be more social because for like the first 2 years, I was pretty much just trapped in a room making videos. So that definitely made me feel like I guess you could say like a recluse in a sense, and like made me socially awkward a lot more than I already was. So I've been trying to just do things that would be fun for me to do as well as, good for me to do.
I think that's inspirational. Sometimes when we don't feel like going out and doing things, it's surprising that if we do it in spite of that, we might enter a better mood, right? We can't predict if we're going to have a good time or not. We may think, oh, it's going to be terrible because we're in that negative headspace. But when we get out there and do something, it's like, oh, I didn't expect that I'd have friends around who made that joke or who cheered me up in that way. I see that a lot with clients. You're just predicting negative stuff. It happens to everybody. When you're in a bad mood, you don't see that you're going to get out of it.
Definitely. That's why I try to be that guy that's always like, let's look on the bright side. Because like there's always a bright side for the most part. Even if, it's kind of a dim and dull day, there's always a bright side. I mean, I was pretty negative about my broken AC, but at the same time, I got a fan. So there's a bright side.
There you go. Ingenuity. So that is great. So you said you enjoyed reading stories with strong Southern undertones and having to explain Southern terms to people in the comments or in the videos. Tell our viewers or listeners rather some of those, because I wanted to hear that. That would be interesting if you can remember.
I've got quite a few. It's a lot of fun because I'm from Florida, but most of my family's from like Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina, and I grew up in my teenage years up in West Tennessee.
Nice.
East Tennessee, excuse me, and West North Carolina.
Sure.
And so like I never really had like the hey brother like all the rest of my family does, but but my favorites are like yins, like when because everybody thinks like Southerners say y'all, we say yins. Real Southerners say yins. So
and that's really I can't believe you said that, because that would be what my grandparents would say on my dad's side, and I never heard that phrase outside of there. That was in North Carolina, and I'm from South. Well, I mean, I spent time in both. It's kind of they're really similar. So.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it's not much different. It's just the only difference that I can say, and this is more just a joke between South Carolina and North Carolina, is South Carolina has crappy roads.
You ain't kidding. That's the truth.
I've driven up there going through from Florida to Asheville, and I had to go through like some of freaking South Carolina, and it's miles of black ice on the worst highway roads you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
The potholes everywhere and like haven't been paved since like 1963.
Right. Yeah, they
it's pretty bad.
Some more tax dollars to that, that's for sure. Whenever I go back and visit, I think, that's about right. I remember these roads, so that's funny. So yuns is a good term. Boy, I haven't heard that in years. That's funny.
Yuns, come here right quick. Let me go down yonder right quick. Get the polecat, get the shotgun right quick, buddy.
Polecat, yes, for skunk.
For skunks. Yeah. Every time I say polecat, people are like, the what? I'm like, the polecat, brother. They're like, that's a skunk. I'm like, yes, a skunk. I said that. Like, polecat, brother. What more do you want?
Oh, that's great. Fixin' to. People don't like, I'm fixin' to. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Not the food either.
No, fixing to as a
I'm not fixing to whip that ass, boy. And he's like, oh no, Dad, please.
No.
You won't hear that. You won't hear that much anymore, sadly. But in 2019, but sometimes I wish you could give a good old Southern butt whooping, like you used to back in like the 90s or early 2000s.
Only 90s kids will remember Southern beatings and abuse.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh man. They'll be like, oh, it looks like somebody has to get up at 4 a.m. and clean all the pig troughs. Yay.
Yeah, no, that's such a good segue, because I saw on your tweets that you talk about the swamp hogs. Tell us about the swamp hogs, because I'm familiar with those. Are there some pigs, obviously, that you got? Hogs.
This is about to be really awkward for you, but funny for me. But the swamp pigs that I'm referring to are guinea pigs.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, that's right. The ones. Okay, you just.
Yeah. A lot of people think that I'm actually talking about hogs. Like I had hogs when I was a kid growing up, but like no, these are just little guinea pigs. They're swamp
Oh,
pigs.
that's great. I
Yeah.
thought, oh, there's the pigs. I thought briefly, but then I wanted to see, okay, are they real hogs? Because, hey, anything's possible.
Oh, anything is
Especially
possible.
in Florida. So.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I might have a couple alligators back there. You never know.
Yeah, I don't. That's the thing. Did you see the picture floating around, no pun intended, of the alligator with swimming around with a knife in its head?
Yeah, that was awesome. That was.
I mean, look, I can.
That's Florida in one picture.
It really is. I can see how that wouldn't hit its skull, and it's just kind of just sitting there with it's just the knife is, and I like.
Yeah, there's one spot in the top of their head you have to get to basically be able to kill them. But like usually you have to shoot it. So
yeah. I mean, gators are really the final boss of Florida. I mean, you got one weak spot there. I mean, it's just they're bullet sponges.
It's on hard mode the entire time, or it's on expert, excuse me. It's just like cheat codes on the max. Like they bite you, they don't let go, and then suddenly they're about to drag you and then roll you, and you're already now you're drowned too. You're like shit. Now
yeah, I remember watching the like Animal Planet crap like that, and it was just the way they would roll around. It's just, and you think, well, that's how they would drown their prey.
Yeah, and also rip their limbs apart. So make it easier for them because they don't chew their food. A lot of people forget that. They just rip off massive pieces of it and swallow it.
Right. Yeah.
They're trying to get it down as quickly as possible. And that's why a lot of people are like, why don't you go out in the woods anymore? I'm like, because I'm scared of bears. Why? Because they eat you alive. They don't care.
I didn't think about that.
Bears get on top of you and they just eat you. They don't care if you're still moving, if you're still breathing. So like they pin you down and they just start eating you. If anybody's ever seen the lost footage of the grizzly man, that when him and his girlfriend got wrecked by some bears, you just hear them eaten alive. That's why they're screaming, because they're not killing them. They could kill them really quick, obviously. They're 1,000-pound bears. It's not going to take them nothing to kill that guy. But they just start eating you right away. So I'm like, yeah, that's why I don't really go out in the woods anymore. And Florida has everything in the woods. We have wolves, we have bears, we have bobcats, coyotes. We apparently have skunk apes. I don't know, man. We got chimpanzees, orangutans, all kinds of stuff running out there. So I'm like, I'm not trying to play with any of that.
No,
I'm gonna stay inside.
God, I had no idea that the bears would eat. I didn't know that there was some footage, the unreleased or the footage of Grizzly Man. I thought that stuff was suppressed.
Oh no, you can find it all over. I could send you quite a few links if you want, but a lot of like horror channels cover it, so I've seen it quite a bit. But they did like a whole documentary about it, about him and his girlfriend that got killed, and they kind of like showed bits and pieces.
Yes, and that was with that famous director.
Yeah, I can't remember who it is.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna look at it because he's a seminal voice of cinema there. Boy, bears. Okay, staying away from them. That's
yeah. Bears are a no-no. Gators, like, I don't know. I swam with gators most of my life, so like I'm definitely scared of them and vigilant, but like I'm also kind of mad at my parents. I'm like, why would you ever allow me to go in this water when there's gators 10 feet away from me? And they're like, it makes you strong, brother. It's like, all right. So I got it.
Right. Werner Herzog, that's who did it.
Yeah,
Werner Herzog, the famous director, and his voice lends credence and gravitas to almost anything. He could read the nutritional facts off of a Fig Newton bar, and it sound just absolutely urgent. So he makes that documentary even more dismal sounding than it is, given the context and the subject matter.
Oh yeah, definitely. Florida's a melting pot of it's basically just Australia with like a few more like testosterone boosters,
That's a good way of putting it. That's a good clickbait title.
So we're not a species meant to survive here.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. Well, you said it's the Everglades are the biome that the most biodiverse environment. I think that's a amazingly fascinating point. So talk to us about the T.W. Grimm. We can plug his stuff a little bit because I know you do in your videos. You reference his writing abilities, and he's got a lot of stuff on Amazon. or a few things, I should say, on Kindle and.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's got I think most of his stuff is on Kindle. So if you have Kindle, you can get him for free there. He's got quite a few paperbacks. He's a great horror themed author. It's a lot of fun because he can suspend your disbelief very well, but he keeps it all based in reality a lot of the times. So like he definitely helps me with my research too when it comes to a lot of these trying to keep these cryptid videos grounded, because a lot of reports you'll find aren't necessarily grounded. So it's really hard to like find somebody who has that same mindset as you to be able to help you shift through all the BS in a sense. And I think he does a great job of just creating like really awesome short horror stories, and he compiles them in the books. And he also has books that are obviously just one story from start to finish. And he's done quite a few collaborative books with a lot of people like Vincent Venicavo, who's very popular in the horror writing scene. Man in Lisette, another one, or Lisette. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I don't know. I apologize.
Yeah, something like Lisette, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, he does a lot of cool stuff, and definitely is somebody I'd recommend if you're looking to have something written for you. If you're like a narrator or somebody looking for a good creepypasta to be written, he's definitely the guy to go to and show him your doll hairs.
That's a great point if somebody needs some stuff to read. So he has a book called When the Stars Fall. It's got 6 5-star reviews. So that's pretty impressive.
Definitely an underrated writer for sure. Definitely has a lot of good reviews, but should definitely have a lot more of them.
Yep. Southwestern Ontario, author of 99 Brief Scenes from the End of the World. Oh, that's pretty cool. Okay. Well, yeah. Listen to your boy and go over there and check it out. You want to review horror movies too, right? You asked the audience on Twitter if they were interested in that. That could be a really awesome direction. There's so many old school horror movies and weird VHS releases that haven't even been touched. What were you thinking about reviewing? Where'd you see that going?
I have an insanely way too big movie collection for my house that is mainly based on early 2000s and late 90s horror movies. A lot of psychological movies, a lot of suspense films. I'm not really into like slashers that much.
Sure.
So it would be a lot more stuff along the lines of like, say, like Hide and Seek, The Sixth Sense, The Happening, just more psychological driven stuff, things that make you think, movies that make you care about the characters. My biggest problem, like I tried to do horror reviews in the past, but I ended up just finding myself like kind of like crapping on a lot of the films because I was like, wow, this was bad. And I was like, I'm not going to review new movies because I'm always having more bads than goods. Let's review movies I actually want to review. So I think I'm going to do a series of that and go through each year, maybe like an anthology of like a bunch of horror movies from 2000 and go to 2001, etc.
Beautiful idea. Yeah, the early 2000s was an interesting time for film and culture in general. You look at the aesthetics, it was like 20 years out from the 80s, and a lot of the uber sort of garish, very gaudy effects, the big hair, the big colors, bright stuff. And in horror, it translated to just a lot of over-the-top stuff.
Oh yeah, crazy stuff. I mean, we got like The Grudge or Ju-On, the remakes and all that, and a lot of good stuff came. The Ring, obviously, the Rings were around then. We got like Strangers, When a Stranger Calls remakes, like tons of like awesome movies that like don't really get a lot of love. And then obviously M. Night Shyamalan was pretty prominent around that time. So there's a lot of interesting and underrated movies for sure, but. I mean, I think I'm going to cover on just about everything because I've got everything from like the 10 different Pulse movies to, all the way to like the spectrum of like movies that just came out like a week ago, or not a week ago, well, on DVD like a week ago. But
I'm planning to see Midsommar late tonight with my brother and some friends. I don't know if you've seen that yet or if you saw Hereditary.
I have not. I've actually heard a lot of good things about it, but then I've seen the other card. I really need to catch up on a lot of the newer ones. I've just been so busy with the whole YouTube thing that I forget
of course
that they exist.
Yeah. Hereditary was just one that was just absolutely shocking. And at times when you didn't expect it, and the way it addresses family dynamics with mental health and paranoia, I think was expertly done. And so you may get a kick out of it after narrating the kind of stuff you do that has a lot of real life. I mean, that is real life stuff. It's very, very well done, and it's not hokey and kind of funny or kitschy. It's just very gritty. The Hereditary is. So it's pretty fascinating stuff. Yeah, I remember the 2000s horror. It's a lot of stuff like the Saw movies, which is kind of the slasher gore fest stuff, right? Hostel, just over the top for the sake of itself. Not that I'm not bashing those movies.
No, I love both those movies. Honestly, right. I'm one of the few people I know that really actually just like loves Hostel. Like, I don't even like Eli Roth, to be honest, but I like Hostel. But
he's a character. He did a whole documentary series on AMC about horror movie tropes like zombies. Yeah. He's very charismatic, high energy horror guy.
Yeah. I've roasted him a lot in the past.
Oh.
No, he's good. I like him, and he's got that Crypt TV thing going on YouTube now, so that's really cool. Like, I think he's redeemed himself with Crypt TV, but he's had a few movies like Cabin in the Woods and the remakes, and there was a few things that are just like, I don't know, Eli. I don't know.
The Green Inferno was interesting because he was trying to make a new version of Cannibal Holocaust, which was one of the most disturbing movies known to man. I can't at all recommend that to anybody because, I mean, it's some trauma.
I've seen it, and people were like, this is like the scariest movie ever.
Horror movies are interesting because Jigsaw really considers himself a very, albeit twisted, therapist in capacity of make a choice, and if you overcome it, your life is better, and if not, you're dead. I mean, talk about some brief, intensive therapy. My God, I remember watching those movies, and now as an adult looking at them, I think, wow. I mean,
There's a lot of psychological elements there.
There are, and they get progressively more complex as you get into the 7 films. I thought that they ended it really well. Brought back some certain characters there, but anyway, interesting stuff. I think you should definitely consider the horror reviews. I don't know of any, and this may be out there, I just haven't heard about it, any other narrators who are doing that as well, like the movie reviews.
I think We Shouldn't Be Here definitely does one. That's actually how he started before narrator. He was a movie reviewer, and then he started doing it again after his narrations started doing better. But he does that. I'm sure there's probably others, but they probably aren't going to do it the way that I'm going to do it, obviously, because I'm just obsessed with being different, I guess.
Which is a good thing. It's definitely ambitious, like with your documentary series. Oh yeah. It's lots of content about the origins of those cryptids, which is such a fascinating term too. It sounds like sci-fi, and it really is. Art debatably sci-fi or sci-fact if you really believe in Bigfoot.
I mean, there's no fact to Bigfoot really, so I mean, at this point, it can be whatever. I mean, I'm not that guy. Like, I definitely believe in this stuff, and I guess I could say I'm a skeptic, but I do have enough hope that stuff like that's real, because like Bigfoot could definitely be real, definitely could be, but at the same time there is no actual fact behind Bigfoot, right? So it's like, until there's actual fact, you can say whatever you really want about it, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a very sobering perspective. I like that you're not whipping people up into a frenzy about these cryptozoological topics, because people who are impressionable may really think, oh, I'm going to pour my life into Bigfoot stuff. It's like, well, make your own informed decisions, but be aware of the pros and cons to that.
Oh yeah, as I said, I'm not here trying to, convince anybody to believe anything. I'm just sharing my thoughts on the subject. So whether you like the thoughts or not, that's, I guess, up to debate.
And you're narrating some things that are actually true and doing it in a very sensitive way that's not capitalizing on sensationalism. I would say it's drawing attention. I like what you were talking about, being an advocate for these cold cases, man. That's unique.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like a lot of people cover cold cases, and they do it really well, and they do it respectfully. But I feel like there's not enough people going out of their way to cover these cases that have no details. Like the Margaret Beck one really had no details, but I found more details, and I was able to, put it together in a way that didn't change the story, sensationalize it, or make it anything that it wasn't, and still able to make it a pretty sizable video.
Right.
So I feel that more people should just kind of do that. And because like you see like a lot of them where like there's like, what could it have been? Like all that kind of weird stuff. It's like, we can leave out the sensationalism and the, the illusion there that it's like, oh, I'm not saying I believe in this, but it could be this, like that's kind of just disingenuous to me.
It is. And the good news is you're getting views and subscribers just presenting the facts. And that's very encouraging about humanity because when you get it, the content inside of your videos is pretty well researched. So clearly it's striking a chord with people and you're not having to sell out and try to shill Bigfoot to get those views. So that's perfect. I like to ask this question to different guests. Well, every guest, if I remember to ask it, if you could meet 3 people alive or dead, who would they be?
3 people alive or dead, huh?
Yeah.
Is this like a celebrity thing or just like people in general?
Oh, it could be people in general.
Okay, I don't know how like sappy or sentimental to make that. So it's like, okay.
Oh, that's fine.
My grandma for one, definitely. Okay. Elvis, because that would be sick, and Johnny Cash. Why not?
Oh my God, that's awesome. That is great. I need to just combine all the answers everyone gives on these and have like a a fake meeting between all these entities. Would be hilarious.
A convention of all these people we want to meet.
Yes. Johnny Cash, thank God. I grew up hearing his music. A Boy Named Sue, One Piece at a Time, the song where he builds a car out of a lot of different parts that he stole from a conveyor belt at the car company. And then Elvis. As a Southerner, you've kind of gotta respect Elvis, right?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like, I really was kind of hammered because in high school, I think it was my freshman year of high school, they made us watch this documentary in gym class of all places about, Johnny Cash. So I was like, okay, I guess I know who this is now.
Right.
And I just ended up really liking his music, honestly. And, I was always really excited that like when he covered the 9 Inch Nails song Hurt, I was like, I thought that was super cool that Johnny Cash acknowledged an industrial metal band. So I was like, this is super cool. And I think that made me like love him even more. And obviously I just eventually fell in love with his music. And the same with Elvis. My grandma really liked Elvis and I always liked Elvis. And how do you not like Elvis?
Right. Exactly. No, the Johnny Cash covering Hurt, that was great because you get somebody who usually goes the other way, right? Where you have an older artist who has some ancient song and then a newfangled band or group or individual artist covers it, but it went reverse. Johnny covered a song from a group that formed, eons after he started his career. So, and it was fascinating too, because Johnny, as a Southerner, covering a song from Trent Reznor, who is like the avowed atheist, very, very industrial, non-sentimental, non-Southern artist. It's such a flavor that song Hurt gets being filtered through Johnny. It's fascinating.
A lot of emotion that gets put into it. And like he like twisted it. It's like he didn't really twist it, but like he basically like completely reverted the meaning. And like it was really cool to see how you could do that just with like a simple like style change.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting to think about. Are you a big industrial fan?
I wouldn't say I'm a huge industrial fan in specific. I do like industrial stuff. I'd say at that time I was always like a new metal kid. I was always more into like that kind of stuff. But I definitely am a casual fan of it. I'd say I do like a few industrial bands.
Oh, I love new metal, Korn and freaking Limp Bizkit.
Limp Bizkit, yeah, you got a System of a Down.
Yeah,
I guess Slipknot was in that realm for a while.
Slipknot.
There's a lot of them. It's like every time I try to think of new metal bands, like I always like fire blanks because I'm like I know so many, but then like I'm like, what were their names again? Because they're so obscure, so they're not something I listen to all the time.
Sure.
But like when I turn on my new metal playlist, they're there. I'm like, oh man, why do I never recommend this band?
Right. Is there something you wish you had known before, and that now that you wish you'd known before about becoming a YouTube personality or getting started on YouTube?
How much work it actually took.
Right.
I don't think I ever expected it to be easy though, because even from like right out the gate, I was doing like 2-3 videos a day every day. So
Wow. That's quite a
I did
bit.
that. I did that for 365 days straight. I uploaded 2 videos a day at the very least, and just because like I watched all these like guru YouTube videos before I started, and they were like, you have to put out this many videos, and so you can expect this return or something like that. And I was like, I guess so. And I just ramped it up, and eventually it started, accumulating, and here we are now. And a lot of those videos have been deleted since. A lot of stuff have happened on YouTube where a lot of those videos weren't allowed to be here anymore, unfortunately. But
Right.
yeah, I wish I knew that like how much time actually goes into this kind of stuff, especially when you don't really have much of a social life like I didn't before YouTube, because I was, again, before that, working 2 warehouse jobs every day. So it was just kind of like I went from no lifing and having physically taxing jobs to no lifing and having a mentally and emotionally taxing job.
Sure. Right. Kind of a trade-off there. I was going to ask, in one of your podcasts about creepy things people have seen on their night shift jobs, you said that you'd seen some things as well when you were introducing that series of narrations. Have you ever shared any of those odd things that you've seen?
I've shared quite a few of my stories in, like, live streams, and I have interspersed them in some videos,
Okay.
like my scary bar stories video I put out like a month or 2 ago. A couple of
Oh,
my own bar stories in there.
okay.
Um, but I do plan to try to like make a video that compiles all of them. The night shift ones are more just kind of like super gross than anything, but like they're creepy just because like I definitely seen like a lot of things, like a lot of schizophrenics that I didn't know what that was at the time. So you think like this lady's possessed or something,
Right.
and stuff like that. Just like crazy like things with people, mainly on night shift. Not too much of like the paranormal side. Most of
Right.
my paranormal stuff has always been, me just chilling, and all of a sudden some stuff is going down. I'm like, well, I gotta move.
No, I think that's a great point. I hear a lot of these stories narrated on YouTube, um, and there's quite a great possibility that there's just some untreated mental illness responsible. Not always, obviously, but often. And
Definitely.
what actually interested me about YouTube, and I upload a lot of podcast interviews on there now, but I also like to hear when people narrate the Reddit, the subreddits. I don't know if you've heard those videos. People will just narrate the things on there.
Yeah.
Well, they will do that with relationships too, and there's a lot of borderline personality disorder symptomology on there, where you'll hear about people who meet someone, male or female, who seems extremely nice and charismatic, and then when things are going poorly, the person texts like 50 times. It has a really hard time with emotional regulation, and things just escalate quickly. And so it's important, I think, for uploaders and commentators like you to remind people, go seek mental health treatment, or talk to someone if you are a partner is behaving like this, because there may be some unresolved trauma. But I don't know if you've encountered that, where you'll be listening to some of this stuff, or you'll rereading about it, you'll think, okay, so this probably has an explanation that's beyond, oh, they were having a bad day.
Oh yeah. Sometimes, not every time. It's a lot less frequent now, just because it
Sure.
offends people. But back in the day, I used to give my thoughts after the stories and like
Right.
give my opinions. And a lot of the times, I would mention that I feel like there's some sort of mental illness. Like there was a story where this guy was just absolutely insane, super obsessive over this girl, and eventually tried to kill her for
Oh,
whatever reason with a knife. And the
hi.
dad fought him, and the dad got stabbed, but ultimately it was okay, and the guy was taken away to some psych ward or whatever.
Okay.
And my whole opinion over that is like it's really hard to judge that, because like all I heard really was just her side about how this guy was creepy and doing weird things. But it definitely sounds like some sort of schizophrenic, maybe, or maybe some, I don't know. Like I don't really know all the different terms. So like I hate
Sure.
throwing around one word. I don't like to label it because I don't really know what I'm talking
Right.
about, if I'm
Right.
honest. But it just sounds like some psychotic break or some, I would just mention that a lot, like maybe a bipolar break or some sort of medication change, because that does happen.
Sure.
I worked in a pharmacy for a year. I
It does
saw how
happen. Yeah.
medications really do run people's lives. And if some people don't get certain medications, they are completely different. And they become very angry or very negative and can't really control themselves, which is kind of a scary situation to be in. especially if you're somebody like me. At the time I was young, I was like 19, I have no idea what schizophrenia was. And I have this lady that I'm pretty sure is possessed by the demons of Salazar's. So I'm sitting there like, trying to fend off myself from a lady that's very hostile and not understanding completely why. But now that you look at it with hindsight, you can see how you could have handled that situation a lot better, obviously. But I think it's definitely good to point out in some stories when like you can see like signs of people having mental breaks or some sort of illness that is causing them to act a certain way.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important for people who maybe erupt or respond erratically or angrily when you say that stuff, when you just offer an explanation, that an explanation is not an excuse, right? I'm sure that when you were explaining, hey, maybe this was going on with that guy when he attempted to harm someone, you're not saying that's okay. Not at all. To understand something is not to validate it. It's just to comprehend it.
Yeah, I happen to be what a lot of my friends call the voice of reason a lot of time, or devil's advocate, whatever you want to call it. But
sure.
I'm constantly understanding and not necessarily sympathizing, I guess, but just kind of coming from both sides of the situation. So I can see a situation, I could be like, okay, well, I understand why this may have happened here and this may have happened here. And I even do that with my own relationship. When me and my girlfriend will get arguments sometimes, I find myself being the one analyzing where I went wrong and she went wrong and how we could fix it.
Sure.
It's just kind of like the kind of person I am, because I like to feel that I'm the ultimate sense of neutral or unbiased. I want to be that. I want to, like, if I mess up, I want to know that I messed up and how I messed up. So I feel that when I would share a lot of my opinions on that, people would kind of do what you said. They'd be like, oh, you're sympathizing with this, or people that would send in their stories would be offended thinking that I'm invalidating it in a sense. So I kind of stopped doing that.
That's a shame. I understand what you're saying, though. I mean, sometimes it's just not worth it to get into those knockdown, drag out fights or to deal with the comment backlash. I will say, though, what you're describing of trying to understand where things went wrong in the communication with a partner is absolutely on point. A lot of couples therapists, the first thing they have to do is explain to couples that when you're entering a fight, really understand what the issue is about. Sometimes it's not about what's on the surface. Sometimes it's about just not feeling heard rather than whatever it was that wasn't heard in particular. That doesn't matter. What matters is the process of communication rather than the content. Sometimes it's the patterns. And so understanding those is the only thing that lets you change them. Otherwise, you're just kind of taking a shot in the dark about whatever it is.
Yeah, I feel like deja vu because I've had this exact same conversation with my girlfriend where I'm explaining stuff like this and she's just like not having it. Like,
sure. Well, and then sometimes when somebody's in limbic mode, when they're just upset, it's just time to calm down and have some mindfulness and just go to your corners. I get it. When it gets to that point, it's time to relax and then come back when everybody's rational. But that's awesome, man. So yeah, the internet is not always a great bastion of reinforcement when it comes to trying to understand things rationally. We could say that.
I've dealt with that a lot on Twitter recently. For some reason recently, I've just been like on a tirade of just kind of being a troll in a sense, but not really. Just kind of being like that guy that's like, just kind of shakes the bee's nest, I guess. Cause like, I've seen a lot of like, it's just like, I have a hard time. Like, I don't really talk about politics or like go into politics, but like I see a lot of people that say things like blah, 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 but like, they're like, let's fight fire with fire basically. So I'm just like, recently I've just been like, how do you expect, like, like you're saying you're better than these people, but at the same time, you're like, we need to do what those people are doing to other people. That's the only way to fix it. It's like, so fight the problem with the problem doesn't make any sense to me. But I have noticed the mentality is quickly that if you don't have the same opinion as other people, that means you hate them. So I'm just like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not against anybody. I'm just offering a different, like, point of view on it. But that's kind of not how the internet works. And I've had to, learn that lesson a few times. So.
Yeah. It's important that we don't get too caught up in things online. I get that. It can be difficult when you have things you care about, but I think it's great that you're able to kind of step back and say, okay, I'm not gonna get engaged in that for now.
Yeah, not gonna, feed the beast there. Just kind of I said my piece, walk away. Don't just try to, because I'm usually really good at that stuff, but I think recently I've just been more carefree. So I'm just like, being
Right.
a little bit more comfortable, I guess, online when usually I'm a lot more like walled up.
Yeah, I think that depending on our moods going into social media use, it depends how likely we are to get into I will call it a debate. I'll put it
Yeah.
nicely there. Um, and that's why, and it sucks because sometimes you have to get on to upload your own stuff or to respond or to plan something. So you don't really have an option to not see some of those comments or engagements. You just have to respond in the moment by avoiding them. But it's also so easy to misunderstand people. And if someone is already looking for offense, or if there isn't that goodwill there, they don't understand what's being said, and there's automatically a bias to misunderstand. And I think that's on both sides. I think that's on any side, politically, socially, whatever. It depends on how moody someone is and how much they want to vent and get out their emotions online, which anyone in their path, God help them.
Yeah. I've definitely noticed that, but it's just easier to avoid it, honestly. It's a lot less stress at the end of the day.
It is. It's easiest to avoid useless arguments. I've heard people say avoid debate, and I think what they usually mean is avoid arguments, right? Because debate, or if someone
debate is healthy, but a debate is hard to have on a place like Twitter when you have that mentality of, if you don't have the same opinion as me, STFU, you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
So it's just like, it's a lot of like circle jerking in a sense, as my friends would call it. And like people, kind of pat each other on the back, like, yeah, we have the same opinion. But like that one person is like, well, there is this counterpoint. There's like, you know what, we're going to push you into the lava. It's just like, okay. Yeah. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'm burning here.
Yeah.
But it's just how it is. You just have to remember at the end of the day, there's just strangers. The words don't really have any value. If they're not any better than who they're trying to be against at the end of the day, maybe they're worse at times, because if they're calling for being militant or violent towards you because of an opinion that's differing from them, then they're not civilized human beings. They're just a bunch of savages at the end of the day. So they're not any better than all the other people they claim are worse than them. But yeah, it's definitely, I've noticed a trend in, like, especially when it comes to like younger people, a lot of mental health, and a lot of like people struggle with that when it comes to like people's opinions online. Like if they share an opinion, they're attacked for it, or people just, I guess you could say, do the excessive trolling, quote unquote.
Right.
I think that's definitely affected a lot of people, like millennials and Gen Z or whatever they're called. I don't really keep up with the terms.
Yeah.
But I think that affects a lot of young people. Just being, I'm not like the youngest out there. I'm 23, turning 24, but like I'm still in that spectrum of younger people. And
exactly,
the internet was still kind of not around. Like I didn't really have internet till I was about 15, 16 years old.
Sure.
So like I still had like that experience before internet. So for me, I feel like a lot of that stuff doesn't hurt me as much as somebody, say, like my younger sister, who was born in 2005, who never knew anything outside of the internet.
Right.
So like I could see how, like, somebody talking some negative stuff to her on TikTok or whatever the kids use these days would hurt her feelings, and how it wouldn't really bother me. I mean, because I grew up in a sticks and stones kind of thing, and these kids are being brought up that all these words matter. I just try to promote that words do matter, but they matter in a context. If somebody says something stupid and ignorant, but it's not in a negative context, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Because like comedy is kind of dead in that sense. Like you can't really, like, I don't know, people say comedy's not dead, but if you can't make a joke that's offensive, comedy's dead, in my opinion. I mean, like, not jokes are supposed to be offensive sometimes. So I feel like there's like a stigma now. It's like any vulgar word is immediately vulgar no matter what the context, and people are just like, nope, even though like a lot of times like it's not really being used in a negative connotation. So I don't really see how it's a bad thing at the same time, because like words, they have meaning, but they have meaning in context.
So you practice a lot of mindfulness of, what is this going, am I going to be upset about this later? What is the context of it now? It sounds like you kind of tend to just let stuff slide off your back, which can be a good approach. Yeah. What your podcast has only been out for what, 2 months? I saw you were giving a shout out on Twitter that your podcast has really grown. That's amazing, man. What do you attribute that to? You think the YouTube audience is getting on there and supporting it?
I actually attribute it to more of an organic growth. I had the
Nice.
podcast for a little while, but it was really inconsistent before the last 2 months.
Sure.
I'd say the beginning of April is when I really started actually hamming it out every day and stuff like that. And most of it, like, I do a little promotion on the YouTube channel, but most of it has genuinely come from just, people finding it through other iTunes podcasts and other Spotify things and just being more convenient. I noticed a lot of fans would comment in the early days before I had this stuff that, all these other platforms that they use because it was better for this kind of content. And it really is. It's audio based. So there's no better place than a place like iTunes. And it just really has grown and it's just taken over. It's awesome. It's not obviously like the channel is obviously still the bread and butter, as they would say. But the podcast has become just massive in a sense that I would never even expected it to be that fast. And it was really since I switched to Anchor, though. Like I could definitely give a shout out to Anchor. Anchor, I don't know how much help, them putting me on a few of these other platforms did, but I did notice it was a lot easier to actually promote the podcast when I went to Anchor. So Anchor helped me in being able to promote it a lot.
Nice. Yeah, I use Anchor too. It's great.
It's very convenient, very easy. A little plug there. There you go, Anchor. Bless us with the good sponsors now.
Yes, there. Bless us, Anchor. All right. So in wrapping up here, is there anything I didn't ask that you want to say or anything you can think of to leave off with? We're going to plug your stuff, obviously, but.
Let's see. I'm trying to think. I think we pretty much touched on all of it. I can't think of anything off the top of my head here.
Well, yeah, you definitely discussed a lot of self-care importance for YouTubers and other content producers. The satisfaction of producing content that is well researched. Again, very impressive. I didn't expect to get an entire history of Florida when looking at the skunk ape video, but I was better for it. I understood the geography and therefore the potential origins of this creature. You said people took exception to it. What in God's name are they taking exception to, I wonder? Because you thought it out, that's for sure. What else is there as a possible explanation for a cryptid like that?
Oh, ultimately, I was just I threw out a theory of evolution in a slight sense. It wasn't, but they're like Darwinism it had nothing to do with Darwinism, to be honest. But
all right.
That's just people see and they kind of judge before they actually listen to what is being said. Like I said, like the context is being ignored.
Sure.
So they heard me say one thing about evolution and food chains and adaptations, and they're immediately like, oh, so that's the theory, when it kind of wasn't.
Well, and I think you can get criticism, and that gets to the mental health point too, right? Is you can have all this well thought out stuff that's more researched than 98% of other YouTube videos in the same topic, and somebody still find the missing tile, so to speak.
They'll still nitpick. There's like, that picture was a Bigfoot, not a skunk ape. I've got tons of those. I'm like, well,
we don't have any. Well, we don't have any.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the best relative pictures here, guys. Like I'm not a genie. I can't make this stuff happen.
Well, to be honest, I don't think that there's those many artistic renderings and representations of skunk ape compared to Bigfoot. Bigfoot's kind of like the big star of the family there. He's like Alec Baldwin and Bigfoot's the Alec Baldwin, and the other lesser apes are kind of like the other Baldwin brothers, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's like the fourth free bird you never knew about. So.
Yeah, how about that? Exactly. All right. So check out Swamp Dweller's YouTube channel, his podcast, which conveniently you can find by looking up Swamp Dweller. It's very easy to find that way. Follow him on Twitter. I'll put the link to all those things in the description here of the podcast. I enjoyed our little merging of the swamp and the fox den. I think it was very fruitful, Mr. Swamp Dweller.
Definitely, there's a lot of fun. It's refreshing. As I say in most interviews I do, I don't really do them often because I feel they're very played out and it kind of gets boring answering the same questions over and over. But this was a lot of fun. It was refreshing, and I like the take of being able to try to share some thoughts and opinions on, what people, especially online entertainers, can do to keep themselves mentally healthy, because it is a very very mentally taxing job. Is most
Yes.
people will sit there and be like, get a real job, you know, but they don't understand, like, this is like the ultimate independent contractor job. Like,
It is.
but you don't have, but unlike actual independent contractors, you don't have a contract.
No.
And at the same time, at any moment, your entire livelihood that you worked years on could be taken from you with no excuse.
Right.
So it's just like, you don't understand what that does to somebody's mental, especially when it comes to their creative ability as well. Cause they're like, well, I need to do what works and stay within these guidelines, but that can be very taxing emotionally and mentally on people. So
Absolutely.
I just really want to hopefully spread that message so more people get that. Like, my dad was pretty harsh on it at first. He didn't get it. You know, he's from the 60s, you know, he doesn't understand this stuff. He works in AC his whole life. So he's like, you know, this isn't a real job until he saw, you know, what came of it. And then he understood more, and now he's more receptive. He gets a lot more when I talk about, like, you know, the mentalness and the emotional burnout that you could sometimes get. And like, he gets it more now. So like, that's also cool that like the success of the channel has ultimately brought me closer in a sense to some of my family and kind of opened them up and changed them for the better as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. So not only is there the burnout from working at the research, the preparation, the composition and editing of the videos, but it's also from the reaction of people who say it's not a real job, right? So there's invalidation and burnout, and those can be a tough mix, to put it very mildly. So everybody, take care of yourselves out there as you produce this stuff. And it's an awesome point to leave on. Thank you so much.